On this episode of Real Talk Rentals, we're going to be talking about maintenance. Nobody likes it, but it is a necessity. Welcome to Real Talk Rentals, a podcast brought to you by OnQ Property Management. We're here to give you the behind-the-scenes look at property management and everything that goes into owning a rental property. I'm Ben. I'm your host. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Eric Dixon, the go-to expert on all things property management out here. And today, we're going to be diving into something that everyone kind of dreads. It's a scary word in property management, and that is maintenance. What happens when things break? What happens when repairs are needed? We're going to walk you through that process from a property management standpoint, and then try and give you a little bit on the self-management end as well. So, Eric, I'm going to throw it to you with a property management company, obviously us here at OnQ. What does the maintenance process look like?
Well, yeah, it's kind of a loaded question because maintenance it's probably more than half of the actual day-to-day job, as far as a property manager is concerned. If there was no maintenance, it would be obviously rent collection and the accounting and that sort of stuff. But maintenance is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was just on a call yesterday. Somebody called in and I was the backup guy for the salespeople. And, we went through the normal spiel of our service and we talked for about 20 minutes and he was excited. And then he's like, "Hey, how does the maintenance work?" And I could tell he had big anxiety about it.
Sure.
Like he's like, "Hey, I was trying to sell my home. It's been on the market for 90 days. I'm looking at, hey, maybe I should rent this place instead. But I'm really concerned, man. I mean, my house is older. The AC is 10 years old. He has a pool. He has landscaping that probably don't want a tenant to take care of. It's kind of higher touch landscaping." And I could just tell he's like, gulp on the other side of the phone.
If that wasn't in consideration, it'd be like, just do a rental.
Oh,
no
dude.
problem.
And we talked about, I told him, I said, the biggest unknown expense in property management, owning rentals and everything is maintenance. I mean, it's just, you don't know. I was telling you yesterday as we were kind of talking about, hey, this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is I replaced a roof this year that I wasn't anticipating for at least 5 or 10 more years. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and we're talking, it's a tile roof and it's a bigger house. And it's like, dude, that was not something I was expecting. And you just have to be able to stomach it, And so anyway, as far as what the process looks like, it's more just understanding that as a whole in property management. Or if you're a self-managing landlord and you're struggling with maintenance, that's okay. That's the name of the game. One of the biggest reasons people hire us or a manager in general is because of maintenance.
Right.
Like I'm done. I'm sick of doing this myself. It takes so much time and effort and liability and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So really, when we were talking about, there's two kinds of maintenance then in that, right? Yeah. There's the unexpected, the roof that you weren't prepared for. And then there's the things like you were mentioning before, the pool, the landscape stuff that is just maintaining the property that still needs to happen, even though renters are in there.
Yeah. And you're right. So the breakdown is the routine stuff is, if you have a pool, you have pool service, you have landscaping that needs more work than an average tenant would do. You could include landscaping. A lot of our owners and clients are including at least quarterly or biannual pest control, or if they're not, it's tenant responsibility. And then the routine checks, at least here in Arizona, like a routine check on your AC system, your HVAC, you've got to do it. It's going to save you a big repair, over the summer. Water heater flushes, roof inspection and roof maintenance. I kick myself because this roof that I had to replace, I could have done roof maintenance on it, spend $400 or $500 every 5 years and get the broken tiles and get the mortar caps, fixed and, get the tiles that are sliding fixed. And I wouldn't have to have done this huge repair and ultimately replace it,
Right.
So I kicked myself, even talking about it. And then you have the unexpected. So I talked about the roof, but here in Arizona, we talked to our maintenance coordinator yesterday and said, hey, what are the top 4 maintenance requests that come in? We were going to do top 3, but we knew the number 1.
AC.
Obviously it's AC, right?
Yeah.
So here in Arizona, it's like AC from March, April until October. It is by and large the most submitted maintenance request.
Sure.
So aside from that, number 1, the numbers 2, 3, 4, and I was a little bit surprised in this order. Leaks, so plumbing related leaks, right? Whether it's a a valve or a faucet or a dishwasher line or, some sort of water leak, a water heater not working, and those it's common. And then electrical issues was number 4.
Yeah.
So, light switches, outlet doesn't work, more than a breaker not working. It's like, hey, something happened, or the fan doesn't work and it ends up being a short, or, something like that.
And it's funny that we knew right away it was AC, and it's obvious because not only are ACs, essential out here, you can't survive obviously in Arizona, but it's the kind of thing that a tenant is going to call on right away.
Yeah.
Because it is an emergency if it goes out in July, whereas maybe they're like, oh, that ceiling fan's not working. I should put in a request to have that fixed, and it might not be top of mind.
It's not top of mind. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I know there's like this kind of panic in owners that they think, oh, they're just going to say, everything's broken and want everything to be replaced.
Yep.
And it's like, usually it's the stuff that is serious. They're not just for fun filling that out. They're doing it because there's no, AC and it's 120 outside.
Yeah. And really, as you bring that up, there's a mindset of a tenant versus an owner of a property that maybe lived there.
Sure.
I'm guilty of it, but there are things that are wrong in my home that I own right now
that you just live with,
that I've neglected and I haven't fixed them. Right.
Sure.
But if we rented it out, that'd be the first call.
Right.
It's like, dude, this handle, there's a door in our house. My wife and I were just talking about it last night. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that door's stuck and the pin doesn't engage. And so, that bedroom door doesn't latch. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know that. But if that doesn't latch, that's a maintenance call. You know? And so there's some things that you just normally would live with that tenants, it's an expectation and the bar is high. You've got to maintain that type of stuff.
It's, I remember, so I'm a renter and I've been living in the same place for 5-6 years now. And the first 4 years, nothing. We never had to call for anything.
Dude, you're the dream tenant, man.
Right?
No.
Yeah. Not a single phone call, right? For 4 years, because it was like, everything was good. It was taken care of. There was nothing broke, nothing that we couldn't fix ourselves. Just like, something needed to be
tightened
or whatever. Yeah. And then this last year, the AC went out. Unrepairable. They had to replace the whole thing. They had to fix the roof. The house had to be painted. We got a letter from the HOA saying,
that forced them to paint it. Okay.
They forced them to paint. And I was like, man, thinking about your roof story, it's like my landlord had to do all of that this year.
Yeah.
And she probably was not expecting that, but it's like, I can't control that. I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but HOA is mad at you. You got to paint.
Yeah. And do you know what it's one more point to drive home is that the tenant, it doesn't make you a bad tenant, right?
Right.
And I know the perception is, man, this tenant's crazy. I've had to replace the AC. I've had to paint the house. I had to fix a roof leak. Yeah. And it's like, no, all of those things would have happened, good or bad tenant, whether you pay on time, you don't pay on time, whether you damage the house or not, those things would have had to be done. And unfortunately for your landlord, it happened all in a 2022. It happened in 1 year period. And so that's the unknown expense. For years they were riding the gravy train with you.
Yeah.
Right? no maintenance issues.
Yeah. So I know for me, my process, right? Like the AC went out. My landlord self-manages. I just picked up the phone and called her. For us, I know at OnQ, we do it differently in a lot of property management companies. Can you kind of touch on what does that look like? Maintenance of a property management company is handling it.
And it's evolved a lot, right? So we started in 2010 and we didn't really have a ton of the online capabilities. Jump ahead 12 years. And whether you call, email, text, or do it online initially, we try and funnel everything to online, not just because we want to get off the phone with you. That's not the point. The point is, hey, online, you can submit a video, you can submit a picture, you can write a better description. And so, we welcome phone calls and emails and so forth. Obviously, if it's an emergency, pick up the phone, let's get this handled.
Yeah.
But most of the work orders are coming on online. And what's great about it is the tenant could be at home, it's 10:30 at night, they're tucking their kid in and boom, they notice something's broken. Hey, let me jump on real quick. I'll take a picture. I'll submit it.
Yeah.
We'll worry about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And online just makes it so that when we come in the morning, we're like, oh, boom, we have all these maintenance requests from last night. Let's schedule them, get them assigned to different vendors and contractors, and get those taken care of. So we want to push online.
Yeah.
I would venture to say too that if you're shopping for a property manager in your market, that's one of the things I would make sure they do is they have the ability to submit work orders 24/7.
Right.
And that way I know that as a landlord, you're like, no, you don't want them to submit work orders. That costs me money. But at the end of the day, they're improving your property by letting you know what's wrong so that at 5, 10, 15 years down the road, you're not like, man, this place is trashed because no one called in any maintenance requests.
Sure.
So there is a fine balance, right? Obviously there's some tenants take advantage of that, but then from there, as far as the process goes, it's submitted online. Then we manage the whole thing from assigning a contractor or a vendor, making sure it's scheduled, do the QA, a quality assurance check. Are there before and after pictures of the work?
Right.
Is the contractor license bonded and insured? Make sure they get paid. The invoicing and the payment and stuff goes along from there. And that any warranties are also in the system and passed along.
Right.
Like a water heater typically on a new install has a 6-year warranty. A lot of the AC systems, they'll have a 10-year parts warranty, 1-year labor warranty or whatever. And we want to know that stuff so that if we get a call in 6 months, the owner's not paying, to somebody else to go fix it.
That's a great thing I think too about online is it's accountability on all ends.
Yeah.
Right. The tenant has the comfort of knowing like it's documented when you submitted this with photos, timestamped. We know when it came in, and the same thing on our end. And we can say, hey, we took care of it. You sent it this date. We've got the vendors after photos, it's approved. I totally forget. What did you call Craigslist, like random?
Oh yeah. Well, I tell owners all the time because they're like, well, can I send my own guy? And I'm like, well, yes and no. If your guy's a licensed contractor or he's under the handyman license, he's able to do this stuff and stay within the parameters. Yeah, sure. Whatever. We'll figure that out and we'll manage it. But we can't sub out to Craigslist wonders,
Wonder, yeah.
The Craigslist wonder. And I don't know why I say that. I must've heard it or whatever, but
I love it.
People laugh because they're like, "Oh yeah, I would never just go to Craigslist and hire the cheapest guy." Yeah, right, dude. When we call you, and you're like, "Oh, I've got a guy," and they roll up to replace your water heater in a Honda Accord, and they've got a water heater. You're like, "Whoa! Are you licensed? Are you insured?" Because the liability is not just on the owner. Now it's on us for saying, "Oh man, we supported this decision to send this bootleg Craigslist wonder guy."
So to that end, next question is, can an owner refuse a repair? If they submit a repair, can an owner say like, I don't want to do that and not do it?
I guess yes and no. I mean, the fork in the road there is health and safety is a big one in emergency, or if it's kind of other, right? So if it's health and safety, if it's like AC in the summer in July, believe it or not, we have clients that will say, oh, I want to have my AC guy go on Monday. Is that okay? It's like, no, it's Friday night. It's midnight. It's 104 degrees outside still, because that's a thing.
Yeah.
We need to send somebody today. And they get upset. And it's like, would you live in that house? No. Well, no, but this is a rental. You're like, so, some of that is
human beings living in there.
It's just educating them, But in a health and safety issue, where if a front or back door doesn't lock and you can't secure the home, or there's a window shattered completely and it's open to the elements outside, that's a health and safety issue. You got to board that up immediately. So you can't refuse those type of things. Health and safety, emergencies, sewer backups, leaks that aren't draining. So like a dripping faucet into the sink. Hey, we'll come address that on Monday. Maybe if you can turn the valve off or the shutoff valve, but even if not a big deal. If it's leaking from something onto the floor or through the drywall from the second story to the first story, yes, you have to do that. So I'd say yes and no. Can you refuse it? You could refuse petty things that are like, hey, I don't like the color of this fan. It's oil rubbed bronze and the door handles are satin. You need to come replace this fan.
It's unlivable. You can't live it like that.
No, it's just my OCD. Can't do it. That type of stuff. Believe it or not, we get some requests that are like, hey, I just assumed they'd put a ceiling fan in these rooms. It's Arizona and it's a light fixture, not a fan.
Yeah.
Sure. We'll call the owner and say, hey, look, they've requested a fan. You could say no, it's not required, but those are the types of things you could refuse in a nice way, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, do you know what? They're not willing to, but maybe the owner's willing to pay an electrician to install it if you buy the fan.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I've seen some wild ones where there was a tenant who put in a work order request because she felt that the peephole in the door was too high.
Oh,
She wanted us to
Yeah.
come re-drill the door and put it lower for her. And it's like, an owner's not going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Like that's,
he'll buy you a $8 step stool though.
yeah, there you go. An IKEA step stool. You can stand on that and look.
No, and there are, there's some crazy ones like they'll come in and say, hey, the playground is broken in the community.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, hey, thanks for letting us know. But here's, we'll make sure to call the HOA and let them know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of out of our hands, right? It's like the street lights and the playground equipment and stuff going on in the community. I think a lot of our tenants assume that we're also managing that part of the
Right.
experience and the community. So we do get a lot of stuff like that. We can kind of either refuse to do it or nicely let them down nicely and
Yeah.
say, hey, yeah, thanks for letting us know, but we can't
Maybe
handle
call
that.
the HOA. Yeah.
I would say that the hardest one that they try and refuse on occasion is the cost of a big ticket item. They're like, hey, the AC is going to be $8,000. We got 3 bids ranging from 7 to 10,000, and they'll literally call and say, hey, look, I would love to replace this, but I have no money.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
And it's a lot of
put
money.
down.
Even with the roof we had to replace, like we had to get creative to figure like, how do you rob Peter to pay Paul to make to make these work with the mortgage payment and all this stuff. But our job is to help facilitate that and balance. Like, this is a health and safety issue. We have to get it done. So that's a black and white issue. It's like, yes, you certainly have to do it, but how can we help them get financing, a credit line? Can we ask the vendor to take payments over time?
Sure.
Like, as the management company, we're not a bank, we can't float payments, but hey, if the contractor says, oh yeah, I'll take installments or whatever,
Right.
So we work with a lot of that stuff. Recently we've helped a guy get financing for a new AC unit, and it totally saved him. I mean, he lives out of the country, and he actually doesn't have US dollar bank accounts and stuff in the US. And he's like, look, I don't even know how to figure this out. And we were able to get a credit line for him to pay for it and got it replaced within a few days versus, these alternative solutions were put the tenant in a hotel for 3 weeks while he figures out how to send money to the States,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's just untenable.
Yep.
So in other situations, does a landlord have a say in what vendors are used? If they're, you mentioned like them just calling random people, but let's say they have a license and insured. Can they say, this is my guy, you have to use him?
Yeah. So and this is On Q talking, representing On Q's stance on it is we pride ourselves in not marking up maintenance. And that does not mean that other business models that do mark up maintenance are bad. It's really just that the business model we have chosen to take is, hey, we don't make money on maintenance as a management company.
Right.
We have affiliations and relationships with other contractors that we refer business to and send them, but we want it to be that there's not a conflict, that we say, hey, no, we can use Ben, your AC guy. Great. As long as he's licensed, bonded, and insured 100%, and gives us all that documentation in his W-9, and we can pay them and invoice them correctly.
Right.
And they're going to warranty the work. Oftentimes they're like, oh, well, he's not licensed and stuff. It's like, well, we can't subcontract to them. Like, we are not a general contractor. We can't subcontract to that person and take on the risk and liability of their work. And so the answer is yes and no. We have great clients that bring to the table a couple vendors and stuff like that. Hey, if it's an AC person, try them first. If they can't go, use your guys. And so then we put that in the protocol for the maintenance, and we try them first. If they can't get to it right away, we'll go to our list. You know? So,
and I know that's a sticking point for a lot of investors, especially if you're talking a big investor, like who's got a lot of homes, they have their own relationships. And it's like you said, property management, so much of it is maintenance that it probably scares a lot of them to go, why would I go there? You're going to force me to use vendors I don't want, and you're going to charge me.
No, and let's be real. There are people, we all know an AC guy, or we all know a plumber, right? But and they may give me a better deal than if you called them off the street. So I get it. And we want to make sure those relationships stay intact. But we have to balance the urgency of the work order versus the relationship you have with the AC guy, for example. It's like if your AC guy can't go for 5 days because he's out hunting, like we can't wait for him. You know, it's like, hey, you can't wait. But
he's on vacation, but when he gets back, they'll understand.
But if it's a non-emergency type thing, and and you say, hey, I want to use my guy, but he's a week out. Okay, cool. It's a non-emergency. We'll relay it to the tenant, schedule it with them in a week or whatever.
Yeah.
But we want to support relationships 100%. We certainly have that. And I feel like we stand apart against the competition because we pride ourselves in, hey, we do not mark that up, but we have to jump on these things. We can't just wait for your guy to be available or come through on that.
And I think it's really just the landlords looking at it like with empathy and being like you said before, you wouldn't wait.
Oh yeah.
5 days. Yeah. Like you wouldn't, just because that guy who gives you a better deal is out of town, you wouldn't be like, I'll live in 115 degrees for 5 days while we wait for him. You would say, I guess I got to call somebody else.
Yeah. No, and we bring up AC a lot, but the health and safety is mostly AC in Arizona, right? In other states, I'm sure it's heat, in the northern states where it's cold all winter. And it's like, you can't just let them live there without heat. It sounds silly, Here it is silly. It's like, no, it's Tuesday. The part won't come in for the AC for a week. That's a legitimate thing. The part's coming in but what do you do in the meantime? You got to put them up in a hotel. You got to give them credit on rent. You got to give it, you got to figure out some sort of solution where the tenant feels like, no, they're taking care of this.
Yeah.
And they're not
we have
dragging
portable
their feet.
AC units. I know we'll take out to places.
No, our portable ACs, our hotel credit as part of our, tenant perks here. We've got, the owners on board. We educate them on this, right? If the AC is out for multiple days, especially if the owners lived here in Arizona, they get it.
Yeah.
They get it. It's the ones that, they live in California. Like, I don't have AC or heat at my house with my beach view,
Yeah. I grew up in Southern California. It was like, if you're hot, open the window. If you're cold, close the window. That was it. Blanket, no AC. Yeah. So I want to kind of just touch on before we finish up here, like for people that are self-managing, like I'm thinking of my landlord that, I'm calling when things are going down. What do you think the benefit for them is in using a property management company in this scenario? Because I know a lot of people probably think I'm handy, I can handle this, but what are the advantages of using a property management company as opposed to self-managing maintenance?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest advantage is your time, right? And that sounds cliche, right? It might be that you said your landlord's a self-managing landlord.
Yes.
Right. So you're calling in direct. But it's a time thing. For me personally, as I've said on other episodes, I hired not just our company, but a property manager because of time. Like recalling again, another story of, I almost shocked myself with 220 volt, electricity because I was trying to save an $85 service call for an electrician to hook something up. And I'm like, it costed me time, almost my life. I probably missed dinner with my kids and my wife that night. I probably missed bedtime because I had to drive over there, drive to Home Depot, get the thing, go over there, buy a new part, do all this stuff to save probably a service call, maybe $50 more or whatever, $150 or less. And so it's the time, it's the liability. It's like, if I would have burned that place down, then the insurance company's like, wait, why are you doing that? Are you a licensed plumber? Are you a licensed electrician? We had a subcontractor who will rename, what do you say?
Nameless.
Remain nameless. I'm like, we'll rename him. No, he will remain nameless, but sweating pipe, right? And almost burned the building down. It's a fourplex, right? Catches on fire. 4 tenants are affected, and the insurance claim is over $160,000. Luckily, we require licensed, bonded, insured contractors, right? And the insurance company paid out, and everyone was fine. There was no fatalities. There's no issues. But had we sent the owner who did it himself and burned it down, or had we sent the owner's guy or gal that saves them $50 on the service call and they catch this place on fire, like there wouldn't be the insurance would deny the claim. You know? So I would say time is the biggest one. Liability is probably right up there. And then I would only say there are people listening that are self-managing and they're also doing self-repair, and that's okay for you. Right. Like, and so for some of you guys, it might work, going back to the very beginning of this episode, I said there was a call yesterday. That guy, he has a pool and he's like, hey, what should I do with my pool? I said, well, you got to include pool maintenance and rent. It's kind of just the standard here in Arizona. The owner pays for pool service. And he's like,
Right.
well, I do it myself right now. So I'm just trying to figure out how much time, and he's like talking, he's like thinking out loud, and he's like, I could probably come every week in the summer and twice a week in the winter. And then it clicked in my head, wait, he's thinking he's going to drive to the house 4 times a week or 4 times a month to clean the pool to save $135 a month or whatever it costs for pool service. And I'm like, his time, he's putting a very low value on his time.
Yeah.
Right? And he's saying,
and his gas.
And it is, and it's like, don't you hire a management company to create a barrier between you and the tenant? Like, yeah. And so I actually told him, I said, hey, look, if you're going to do your own pool service, you're going to go over. He talked about other maintenance because he's super handy. I was like, the management company might not be for you. It might be, hey, if you're going to do the pool, if you're going to do the landscaping, if you're going to come do the pest control yourself, if you're going to do all the repairs and you want to be that involved, it may make sense for you to self-manage and do that stuff. And then what happens is they do it. Then 6 months later, they call. And they're like, dude, this is too much. The tenant has my cell phone number. They call, text, email, nonstop.
I mean, why wouldn't they? Like, if, the point of a property management company, if you're calling a property management company, they say, we got to get the owner to approve. Of course, in a tenant's mind, they're going to be like, well, I'll just cut out the middleman and call the owner.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't tell you how many funny stories we've had of like owners that go to visit or they fly into town and they just want to look at their property. And we're like, hey, whatever you do, don't exchange your number with the tenant. And they're like, oh, why? And you're like, well, I'm telling you, just trust us. Like they're going to start, oh, okay, whatever. 3 months later, hey, can you tell the tenant to stop texting me?
Yeah.
I've referred him back to Ben over and over, my property manager, but and the tenants don't do it on purpose. It's just that they're either going to fill out a maintenance request on our website at 10 p.m. or they're going to text the owner at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's one or the other, So if you have a property manager, they know we are not at the office 24/7. They understand the process of going online. If it's your cell phone as the manager, it's like, dude, you're getting the 10 p.m. texts.
Yeah.
And you're reading a text at 10 p.m. going, a blade on the fan is broken. They think it's an emergency. All right, honey, I got to go fix this,
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, that's kind of an extreme story, but I mean, that's reality.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
It's true. I mean, all right. So I think we covered a lot on maintenance here, but to sum up, it happens. Right. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen no matter what.
Don't get into the rental business thinking, well, it's going to be like Ben when he rented for the first 4 years and nothing will happen. Things break. They break in homes, they break in apartments, and you got to be prepared for that. Yeah. And you got to budget for it.
No, I see in my personal portfolio of rentals, there are certain ones now that I'm literally thinking of addresses. I'm like, dude, I haven't had a maintenance request on that one in a while. And it's funny because there are correlations with, if you're charging top rent, the bar is higher for maintenance. They're like, dude, if I'm paying top dollar, I better be getting top tier maintenance service.
Yeah.
I've got one that's very low. They've been there for a long time. They never call ever. And I'm actually like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but they're never calling. But I would just, the walk away today, I think, is maintenance costs money. It's a tangible, hard cost. It's going to hurt. And you got to figure out, what do I need to do? Maybe the positive cash flow every month you get, try not to live off that money, sock it away. And then if you don't have to use it, awesome. It's a bonus. But I'm telling you, the roof, the AC, the plumbing issues will come over time.
Yeah, at some point.
So you must budget for it. I'd say the other understanding is knowing that doing maintenance correctly the first time adds value to the house long term.
Right.
So even if you feel like, man, this is just a black hole, a money pit, if you're doing it correctly and they're doing good work over time, these things are going to pay dividends down the road.
Yeah.
Get a plumber who knows what they're doing, get an AC guy who knows what they're doing. And over time, you're going to win there. And then ultimately, we haven't even mentioned the word the most important word in maintenance, and it's trust. When you have a property manager, if you trust your manager and the manager trusts you and your intentions, you can work well together.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we've had to make judgment calls, even with owners we've been with for 10 years. Emergency comes in and we're getting their voicemail. We're getting no response to text messages. And we have to make a decision, rightfully, contractually, we are allowed to make that decision. And we know that this owner's a good owner, this tenant's a good tenant. It has to get done, and we dispatch and get it done. And as the owner, they come back from vacation or wherever they were, and they said, "Thank you so much for handling that."
Yeah,
they trust us, we trust them, and sometimes that takes months or years to build. But all of maintenance, you're either trusting a manager or you're trusting a contractor, and you're trusting a tenant. It just boils down to that trust relationship.
Right. All right. Well, I think those are strong words to end on. So that's it for us this time. We would really appreciate it if you would follow the podcast and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps out, and we will see you guys next time.